All right, good morning, everyone. Hope you all are warm and well. Just to be respectful of everybody's time, we are going to go ahead and get started with this info session about our upcoming Vibrant Health fundraising training program for our 2026 spring cohort. Just as a reminder, this will be recorded, so feel free to take notes, but a copy of these slides as well as a recording will be available after the presentation. For those of you I haven't gotten a chance to meet, my name is Sarah Omari. I'm the Grants and Strategy Manager here at IEHP Foundation, and I will be your main point of contact for this opportunity. Joining me on this call is going to be Deanna Hendrick, our Communications and Public Affairs Manager. She'll be helping monitor the group chat as you have questions. During this information session today, we'll be going over these topics. So we'll do a brief introduction and background about the IEHP Foundation. We'll go over key details about the training program, including timeline goals, eligibility requirements, and evaluation. We'll be going over some testimonials. This is our second cohort that we are launching, so we have some impact stories from our past participants. And we'll also be taking the time for those of you that are unfamiliar with our grant management portal, how to access and navigate. And then time permitting, as we close out on the hour, if we do have an opportunity to go over Q&A, we will allow that live. As I shared before, recording of this webinar will be available within the next 3 business days on our grants webpage. A link is listed there, and then a follow-up email will also be sent to all those who are currently on the call with us, but also who have registered for this opportunity. Just a few key tips on logistics. As you have questions, please feel free to type them into the Teams webinar Q&A feature. We will do our best to answer them live, but if there's a little bit of more detail that we need, we will be following up after the webinar if that's the case. And then if you do have any additional questions or they're more specific for your organization, please email grants@iehpfoundation.org. Allow us about 1 to 3 business days for our response. Most likely I'll be the face answering that email, but our whole team has access to that inbox and will be able to help you in a quick manner. So a little bit of information about the foundation. For some of you, this may be review, and for those who haven't worked with us before, I'm excited to share a little bit more. So here at the foundation, we always begin with our why. And so we know that healthy living starts long before and extends well beyond a doctor's office. And so we collaborate with nonprofit organizations and community leaders and invest in initiatives that strengthen the building blocks for good health, because we believe that everyone in the Inland Empire deserves to live a full and vibrant life. And if that's the case, then our region will thrive. So really investing in those community-based organizations that are addressing the social determinants of health. Quick thing to lift up, we are sister organizations with IEHP, the Inland Empire Health Plan, but we are a separate nonprofit organization that was created by IEHP as a strategic investment to approach different initiatives and tackle health disparities in a community-centric approach. And so while the health plan focuses on delivering clinic-based healthcare services and healthcare insurance, we are focusing more on the community conditions, so the built environment, the individual actions that shape a person's health. So again, we're working at the hip, but we are separate organizations. So what are our key funding priorities? We're focused on 2 main areas. One is we want to make sure that the neighborhood in which our community residents live in are built for a healthy environment. And so we focus on 3 main vital conditions, and I'll be going over these in more detail in later slides, but we focus primarily on basic needs, so access to nutritional food, physical and mental health services, meaningful work and wealth, specifically the healthcare and social service workforce development pipeline, but also this year we're extending that out to workforce development as a whole. And then we also support organizations and leaders that are addressing the humane housing and the whole housing continuum. So making sure that those that are unhoused have access to safe living conditions, all the way up to home ownership for those that are currently housing insecure or are looking to own. We also support organizations that help cultivate healthy living for individuals. So those organizations that are helping community members increase healthy behaviors by encouraging nutritious diets, exercise and movement, or healthy social connections, and also those organizations that are working to mitigate risky behaviors, whether that's addiction to alcohol, tobacco, risky drug use, or risky sexual activity. And so a little bit, just a background, we're a fairly new foundation, formed in 21, went operational in 22, had our first grant making in 2023. And since that inception, we have invested $17 million in improving health and wellness here in the Inland Empire. And for us, the Inland Empire is Riverside and San Bernardino counties in totality. And so through that, we've invested in 260 Inland Empire-based nonprofits who have received direct funding from us. And on the right-hand side, you can see a little bit what those organizations were focused on, key terms for their social drivers of health that they focus on. So I would say we are a modest grant maker, but we are a responsive grant maker. So we are always trying to have our ear to the community to hear what leaders need. And so last year, we really focused on building the capacity of trusted health messengers. We're going to lean into this again this year. So again, this is just a quick recap and review. Our biggest investment was our Champions for Vibrant Health Leadership Network. And so that's a 2-year commitment to 40 organizations, 2 leaders from each of those organizations, building up their leadership development skills and sustainable leadership practices, their policy and advocacy arm, and making sure they are equipped with the most up-to-date knowledge on how to be trusted messengers of social drivers of health. We are finishing up our first cohort with that, and then come fall, we will have and open our application for our next cohort. We also have invested into capacity building grants, which is where this Vibrant Health fundraising training cohort ties right in. And so these are smaller, about 7 to 8 session long training programs that focus on a specific nonprofit capacity building topic. And so you can see here what we've leaned into last year. We focused on small nonprofit capacity building. We've also focused on this major gift and individual giving cohort. And then currently in implementation right now is a storytelling cohort. And so with that, there's some grants that are involved, but there's also just an opportunity for that learning. We also have every quarter Vibrant Health forums. So they're about half-day events, free for anyone who wants to come. Looking at the sign-up list here for today's info session, have definitely recognized a few familiar names, but these are half-day forums focused on specific nonprofit topics as well. And so you can see the topics we covered last year. This quarter one, make sure to check our website. In March, we will be hosting one forum a week focused on Medi-Cal retention practices and policy updates. And then we also have responsive grants. So that's your traditional grant making. So as organizations have projects, activities that they need support funding, they can submit an LOI, and we will talk through if there's mission alignment to fund those projects. And so be on the lookout. Applications for those will be opening up here in very shortly. And we also do some work in place-based initiatives. And so we have 2 focus areas, one on the Riverside County side of the house, which is our Blue Zones project. So we have made a heavy investment into 5 communities in Riverside County, specifically Banning, Coachella, Palm Springs, Riverside, and Mead Valley. And we have invested in sustainable health opportunities for those organizations. So anyone on the call, if you're not plugged in and interested in plugging into those opportunities, please reach out. We're happy to connect you. And on the San Bernardino County side of the house, we have a colleague specifically focused on launching our internal Vibrant Villages initiative, specifically in Barstow and San Bernardino City proper. So again, if you do operate in one of those areas, please reach out. We'd love to plug you in. And any of our organizations that we partner with, whether it's direct funding, they've attended a forum, you're on this training call right now, we refer to our partners as our champions for vibrant health. So if you hear me use the term champion, that is what I mean by that. That is our partners. So all of you on the call today, we look to as our champions for vibrant health. So thank you for joining us. All right, so now to get in more specifically into why you're all here today, a little bit more information about the Vibrant Health Fundraising Training Program grant opportunity. So going over some objectives, expectations, and application evaluation details. So as a quick summary, this is a 7-session fundraising training series intended to equip leaders from 20 Inland Empire serving nonprofit organizations with the tools and knowledge to improve their donor management processes and skills, specifically focusing on helping these organizations and these specific leaders develop their skills to increase the number of major gift donors and individual donors to their organization. So it's not focused on grant writing or grant management. It's focused on the individual donor management processes. It is intended for nonprofit staff with moderate experience in donor development, so having a little bit of experience in donor development, but the opportunity to really expand upon that moderate experience. And we are looking for leaders that spend a majority of their workday or majority of their roles and responsibilities interacting with individual donors. You'll see that play out as we go over the evaluation matrix. Each participant will also be expected to engage in 2 one-hour individual coaching sessions. So this is an opportunity to take what's learned during the cohort during those classes and ask questions and dive deeper on how they specifically relate to their specific organization or individual needs. And as I shared earlier, this 2026 spring cohort will be the second cohort that we did for this training series. So the first one was implemented in summer of last year. We had about a 50% acceptance rate. So we realized that the need was and the interest was really high. And so that's why we're bringing it back again this year for organizations. And so just wanted to lift up a few quotes from last year's participants. So you can see here what the impact on their organization was. So it helped them develop clearer goals, plan earlier, and approach messaging with more intentionality. It also allowed in that cohort model to allow peers to network with one another and strengthen confidence. That was something that we did see a lot lift up in last cohort, was a feeling of increased confidence in their roles and responsibilities. We also had some quantitative impact results. So we did an immediate post survey and then we followed up with these participants 6 months later. A majority of them either were able, through the lessons learned during the cohort, to increase the number of new donors or increase the amount of donations that their current donors are giving. And so you can see here this particular participant, Amber, was able to implement donor portfolios. And again, that word intentionality coming back around cultivation of those donors. So we did see a lot of increase in donors and donations across our participants. So we're really focusing on making sure that return of investment if you decide to go through the program. And so who is leading the training? The foundation is excited to back this program, but we are bringing the same fundraising coaches back. And so we are excited to have Lana Wilson with Lana Wilson Consulting and Lisa Wright, who is the founder and leading consultant for the Green Parakeet LLC, to come back as the fundraising coaches. So both these women have extensive experience in fundraising at small, medium, and large size nonprofit organizations. And especially important to us is they have experience with the Inland Empire. So they've lived in the region a long time, and so they understand the nuances of this region. So we're really excited to bring them back. And if anyone's familiar with the Net Promoter Score, our participants last year ranked this program in the 95th percentile. So what are the goals and objectives of this cohort? As I shared, the overall goal is to develop an informed and engaged cohort of fundraising nonprofit professionals by increasing their individual knowledge of cultivating practices and also helping them build and strengthen their organizational infrastructure around these 7 key topics that are critical for good donor cultivation. 1 is a case for support. 2 is a fundraising calendar and stewardship matrix. So on and so forth. I won't read all of these. They're up here on the screen. And if any of these words look unfamiliar to you, this is a great opportunity to learn, and this may be the cohort for you. With all of these, we'll be going into detail about best practices, how to set it up at your organization, and there will be not homework assignments, but what we're calling practical assignments for these opportunities. So this is not just busy work to have you do and practice the theory back at your organization, but the goal is that these assignments are things that A, you should be working on during your workday, and B, that you can start implementing almost immediately in your organization. So there is a practicality to it. So up on the screen, you can see examples, refining your organization's case for support, developing your tiered donor structure. So again, anything that we do here at the foundation, we want to make sure that there is a practical application to it. So what do we expect of the participants? So again, who do we think is best suited to participate in this program? It's going to be full-time development staff those with moderate fundraising experience, and those whose primary job responsibility includes engaging with donors and cultivating gifts. So again, really big focus of their roles and responsibilities is on individual donor cultivation and management. In terms of attendance, so we have two main expectations after selection, attendance and reporting. One is that we do expect that all participants attend all 7 classes in person. So these classes are going to be held in person here at the IEHP Center for Learning and Innovation in Rancho Cucamonga. And it is a cohort model. These classes are not going to be filmed to allow for a safe space to really share about the experiences that you're going through at your organization in a peer-to-peer cohort model. So attendance at all 7 classes is mandatory. We are expecting all attendees to complete their practical assignments and be engaged during the class sessions. So this is a very hands-on cohort. You get what you put into it, but we also, there's a lot of opportunities for feedback with one another. So it's really important that you complete those practical assignments in order to engage meaningfully and with impact during those class sessions. And then each participant must complete 2 coaching sessions. The first one needs to be completed before the last class on July 30th. And then the second one needs to be completed before the end of August 28th. So there's some organizations that may want to sit noodle on what was learned and then come back and ask and really maximize that coaching session. Those coaching sessions are intended to be individual coaching sessions. And so it is expected for the participant from the program to be the only leader in those sessions with the coaches. Again, really big on creating a safe space to have honest conversation on the opportunities and challenges those leaders are facing at their organization. The second side of expectations is a reporting expectation. We are asking for reports not only so we can measure the impact, but so we can also learn how to improve future cohorts of this. We've actually implemented quite a bit of the feedback that we received from the first cohort. One of the things you'll notice if you're comparing RFAs is that we went from weekly classes to every other week to allow more time to complete practical assignments. And so with this cohort, the reporting expectations are 3. 1, that a pre-survey is completed. 2, that a post-survey immediately after the class is completed. And then about 6 months later, a second post-survey is completed. And while there is no direct funding for this opportunity, those that do complete that second post-survey will receive a very modest $100 donation from IEHP Foundation, just as a token of thanks for completing those surveys. All these surveys are pretty quick. We want to be mindful of your time. You want those participants out cultivating the donors. And so each survey should take no more than 20 minutes to complete, and they'll be administered through Microsoft Forms. So in terms of funding, as I shared earlier, there's no direct grants provided through this training aside from that $100 incentive if the second post-survey is completed. But we do value the in-kind training at $2,500 per person. And as I shared through the testimonials from prior participants, organizations do see a good return on investment in terms of seeing more donations, increased revenue for their organizations based off the lessons learned during the program. And tying this opportunity, this is also, if we haven't interacted with your organization before, this is a great way to start building a relationship with the foundation team. And so throughout the cohort, as the responsive grant opportunity applications come out, if you see that a project aligns, this is a great opportunity to consider applying for the Healthy Organizations Grant or the Healthy Communities Grant as they come available. So again, this is an opportunity to start building the relationship with the foundation. So key dates and deadlines, 2 main criteria, those pre-selection and post-selection. 1, the application opened back on February 9th. So that is available to complete. There's a short eligibility quiz just to make sure you meet those those criteria. You're here with me today for this virtual info session. In the next couple days, this recording will be available on the website. And then the application is due midday by 12 noon on March 9th. And that is a very strict deadline. So I really encourage folks, just to avoid technology difficulties or barriers, that you do get an early jump on that application. Just as a caveat, the application in years past took those who applied anywhere from about an hour to 2 hours to complete. So just know that that's the average range of time to complete the application. And then all applicants will be notified of their final selection no later than April 10th at 12 noon. If you are selected, the key dates and deadlines for that, the pre-survey would be due April 24th. That's for the participant taking hold of the classes. The classes are going to be bi-weekly, so every other week from May 5th to July 30th. And on the RFA linked here in the slides is the class schedule. And then you have the key dates and deadlines for the surveys that are due. So now going and diving deeper into some eligibility requirements. So I talked a little bit about who individually we anticipate are participating in this training. Now I'm going to go into how to make sure that their organization is eligible. So high level, organizations that are a 501c3 with up-to-date tax filings are eligible. They have to have been in operations for no less than 3 years, so that's 2023 to present, have an annual operating budget of over $300,000. They can be headquartered, or if you're not headquartered, have a significant presence in Riverside and San Bernardino County. And so what we mean by significant presence is that a heavy amount of your work is focused here on this region, that you align with our priority population, so that's serving Inland Empire children, youth, and families from these priority populations listed on the screen. And we are open to organizations that either provide direct services, lead collective action, or engage in advocacy efforts focused and aligned with at least one of our priority vital condition action areas. So your organization doesn't have to be a direct service provider, but your organization should have, if they are an indirect or direct, should have some individual donors cultivation already in your organization. And then one thing to lift up here that's a little bit different from the RFA is that your organization has to have either 2025 or 2026 Candid GuideStar seal of transparency of gold or platinum. And we'll go over why that is. So organizations that are not eligible to apply, as of right now, are fiscally sponsored organizations, private foundations, C4 organizations, and organizations who participated in the training program last year. So even if you had a different leader, some exceptions may apply, but we are looking to invite new organizations to this opportunity. Those organizations that are part of our current Champions for Vibrant Health Leadership Network may be eligible to apply. Please have someone from your team reach out to me to determine that eligibility. So that's going to be on a case-by-case basis. And then, as I shared earlier, you will be asked to complete a brief eligibility quiz to make sure that your organization aligns and is eligible. So we can be mindful of your time and not have you fill out the full application if there's an eligibility criteria concern. Note here that if you do have any questions, you can always reach out. So diving into those eligibility criteria a little bit deeper, what do we mean by public 501c3? That your organization must have their own EIN. They cannot be fiscally sponsored. You must be in good standing with the IRS, so no delinquency. And you cannot be a private nonprofit, a private non-operating foundation, or a C4 organization. You need to have been officially recognized for 3 years. And what we mean by that is you must have been given your tax exempt status, so have that EIN number by California or the federal government for 3 years. Let's say your organization has been doing services and programs for 3 years, but you just got your 501c3 status. So maybe you were fiscally sponsored before. You may be considered, again, it's going to be a case-by-case basis. And so do ask that if that applies to your organization, that you email the grants inbox for consideration. So have that conversation ahead of the application to see if your organization would fit that additional consideration criteria. Annual operating budget, so must have been greater than $300,000 for the past 3 years. And this includes all anticipated revenue and expenses for the organization. Again, we are responsive. We try to be flexible. We know that there's unique circumstances across the board. And so if your organization currently has a budget that exceeds $300,000 for more than 1 year, but you don't meet that 3-year threshold, you may be considered. Again, please reach out to us to have that conversation to see if you can be eligible. And then alignment with populations served. So as I shared earlier, organizations don't need to be headquartered here in the Inland Empire, but they do need to demonstrate that you have a significant presence in our 2-county region. You can be a direct or indirect service provider, or you could be a coalition that supports those direct service providers. But again, you must have a hand in individual donor cultivation. And then your organizations should align with serving our priority populations. So those are children, youth, or families from low income, rural, or remote communities, or communities experiencing the poorest health outcomes. So we use the Healthy Places Index as the indicator of that. So those organizations that score in the lower 25th percentile. And so a majority of your work, if not all, need to focus on these priority populations. So if you have a small bit of your work that aligns with this population, you may not be as strong of a candidate for this opportunity. So we talked about who needs to align, or the population that you need to align with. Now we're talking about the what. So what types of social drivers of health do your organization need to focus on, whether directly or indirectly, to be eligible for this opportunity? And so one, under that basic needs for health and safety, and again, you need to meet at least one of these. You need to help with access to healthy food and nutrition services, reducing unhealthy behaviors and addictions, access to physical or mental health services. Under meaningful work and wealth, if your organization focuses on one of these three categories, so either increasing access to education programs or career pathways or placement for healthcare or social service workforce, so meaning that healthcare workforce shortage, you would be eligible. If your organization helps those community members who are underinsured, not insured, or currently on Medi-Cal have access to education programs and job placements to make sure that they can maintain their Medi-Cal eligibility, especially considering HR 1 changes coming up in 2027, you would be eligible. This is a new change this year to our focus areas. And if your organization focuses on upskilling community members to high wage and living wage careers, you would also be eligible for this opportunity. And under humane housing, if your organization addresses access to safe living conditions for those that are unhoused, access to affordable housing for housing insecure, or access to home ownership, you would apply. So again, as long as you fit one of these criteria areas, you are eligible. And if the vital conditions is a new way to organize social drivers of health, or it's not a familiar term for you, we've also linked here a little bit more information about the vital conditions framework and some of the work that's happening in the Inland Empire around that framework. But it's just a new way to organize social drivers of health. Leaning into candid guide stars is one of the areas that I get probably the most questions about. For this opportunity, we originally published that you have to have a 2026 Candid Guide Star Seal of Transparency rating of gold or platinum. You will also qualify if you have a 2025. And the reason for this expansion on this criteria is we realize that organizations have different fiscal years. Some operate on their fiscal year aligns with the calendar year, and some operate on a July to June fiscal year, some also October through September. And so depending on what type of fiscal year your organization abides by, that would impact your ability to upload certain financial documents. And so in order to obtain this gold or platinum seal, you do have to upload certain information. So this is our way to streamline the process. If you apply to future grants, we're not going to ask you for your financial documents, a copy of your audit, things like that every time. We're going to refer to this and help streamline that process. And so really trying to leverage Candid Guide Star to decrease the administrative time to complete applications. So if you're unfamiliar with Candid Guide Star, or you need support in navigating how to claim your profile, how to update your organization, here is a link. Candid does a great job providing step-by-step instructions. There's also some incentives to be at the gold level for access into grant searches, things like that. If you still have questions, please reach out and we are happy to help. I will share that you'll probably want to plan for about 5 business days on the conservative side of things for updates to appear. And we are really big on practicing what we preach. And so you'll see that the IEHP Foundation also makes sure that we maintain that gold or platinum status as well. So you have transparency into our world as well. So we talked about now you're eligible, you've submitted the application. How are we selecting our applicants? We believe in full transparency, and so here on these slides, I've included our full evaluation matrix that our evaluators are using. And so each application will be reviewed by no less than 2 evaluators, and then will be graded based off this evaluation, and then we will also take into account the diversity of the cohort, parts of the region, and the social drivers that are addressed. And so we use the acronym ARCH to organize our evaluation matrix. And so I'll go into what each of those letters stand for and the criteria that we're using to evaluate those applications. And so with each of these evaluation indicators, we use a 5-point scale, really 6 if you count the 0. And so those evaluators will go through and score. So just keep this in mind as you're answering the questions on the application. And so the A of ARCH stands for accountability. So we're looking for organizations that maintain accountability to funders in the community by being operationally efficient through healthy finances and strong leadership. And so what does that mean for this opportunity? One is that they indicate under board engagement that the participant and the organization understands how their board is currently engaged in fundraising practices and articulate an opportunity for improving or expanding upon their engagement. You're going to see that theme a lot through all these evaluation criteria is we are looking for organizations that may have a little bit of it, that they were able to articulate what they have in place, but they also articulate how this training helps to improve, expand, or build their capacity on what they have. So it's a key criteria of this evaluation process. The other thing we look at is for the organization to articulate how participation in this training at the organizational level will help them address a fundraising goal or challenge that they're experiencing. And then we also have questions in there that ask the participant or to indicate how this training will help them impact their ability to grow individually and support their organization in improving their donor management practices. And then as I lifted up too, we are also grading on funding portfolio diversity. So organizations that demonstrate a funding portfolio that is somewhat diverse. So there's opportunities to improve upon individual fundraising. So they're not 100% dedicated to grants for funding their operations, but that there's some opportunity, maybe it's 25, 30% of their funding comes from individual donors, but there's an opportunity to diversify that. Going into the R, we are looking for organizations that are results-oriented. So these are organizations that strive to achieve results that are identifiable, measurable, and they demonstrate progress to data-driven decisions. So really kind of around those SMART goals. So what do we mean by that? For this opportunity, we are looking at donor tracking, that organizations articulate that they have some sort of tracking and management process in place, but that there could be an opportunity for improvement. So maybe you're tracking donors by an Excel sheet, but you want to have that more in a cloud-based system. You would score high if you articulate that well on this evaluation. We are also looking for organizations that are sustainable, so that they demonstrate a history of services that appear sustainable and may have the opportunity to grow in either depth or quality, and that the organization has to be in good standing with the IRS and Candid. We are also looking for participants who articulate that they're committed to being fully engaged in the classes with no major barriers to success, and that we are also looking for application completeness so that the organization demonstrates responses that are thoughtful and that they follow directions. So if there's multiple questions within one prompt, that all those parts of the prompt are being addressed and answered. Under C, we are looking for connectedness. So we are really big on relationships, partnerships. We realize it's going to take a whole village to move the needle on vibrant health here in the Inland Empire. And so specifically under connectedness, we are looking for organizations that are connected to community, those communities that they serve, they're a trusted messenger, and networks with other organizations. So particularly for this opportunity, we are looking for organizations that articulate a strong history of programs and services that address a community need and demonstrate a decent size reach within key communities. And so you'll see a question on there that asks your organization to describe your history of program and services. One recommendation that would help you score higher on this is that you also lift up the community need that your organization is addressing. So you're not just laundry listing programs and services, but you're also lifting up a community need. So I would say quality over quantity with this response if you rather go and dive deeper into specific programs and services that specifically align with IEHP Foundation's mission, priority populations, and vital conditions, and you dive into that just given character limitations, that is going to be that would score stronger as an approach than just laundry listing the whole list of your programs and services, even those that may not be mission aligned with IEHP Foundation. Donor engagement, under this, we're looking for participants that are selected that have that strong regular interactions with individuals and that they are able to articulate how, or they're able to articulate that maybe their role is changing and which is leading them to interact more face-to-face with individual donors. We're also looking to make sure that organizations engage with the available resources. Organizations did their due diligence before they applied. So we do have a question in there that will ask if a participant or a member of your team attended either the virtual information session live or that they reviewed the materials. So essentially, this is an all or nothing. You either reviewed the materials or you didn't. And then H is looking at health outcomes. So really, how is your organization playing into the vibrant health goals as a whole? So this is our way of evaluating if your organization is positioned as a trusted messenger that aligns with our priority populations and our vital condition areas. And so you can see here on the right-hand side, we're very forthcoming. Does your organization align with the vital conditions, with the priority populations, and are you positioned in a way to be a trusted messenger of health? So kind of tying back to that connectedness with community. With this too, so with this, we do a scoring and then we will select from there. So again, this is our full transparency into our evaluation process. So now going over more of the logistics. So if you are familiar with the grants management portal, this will be a review for you, but how to navigate the grants management portals to submit the application. So we use Foundant Grants Lifecycle Management as our platform to manage our grants. And so again, you may have experience with this. The great thing is if you do have additional questions or you need a more in-depth tutorial, Foundant offers a support hub with a library, an extensive amount of resources about their programs and their platforms. And so as you're looking up, if you have a question on how to navigate something, you can always reach out. Or if you want a quicker answer, this might be a quicker way to go. Do recommend as you look up different resources that use the word applicant as a keyword for searching tutorials, because they also provide library resources as administrators of the grant management portal. So that helps navigate through those resources. And then there are specific helpful tutorials that are linked throughout the application process, and you'll see what I mean by that in just a second. So again, I shared we use the GLM platform. So to access it, you would go to our website, iehpfoundation.org, and in the upper right-hand corner, you would click on the grantee portal in that orange button. So you can see a screenshot here. If you want more information about the grant opportunities, there's also more information in the grants tab, so you can see additional opportunities there. In terms of submitting your application, there's some information that you would submit for your organization profile, an individual profile of who's applying for the grant, and also the application itself. So at the organization profile level, each organization should have one and only one profile in our grant management portal. If another funder for your organization is Foundant, which there's several in the area, including IECF and RAP Foundation, you will need to create a profile for our specific grant management portal. Those profiles are not shared between funders. And if your organization has received funding from IEHP Foundation before, so maybe you're not sure if your organization has a profile or not, but if you've received money from us, your profile already exists. So I ask that you do not create a new profile. And if you have questions on how to access that profile, reach out to the grants inbox and we can walk you through that. Additionally, each organization should only submit one application for this opportunity. So we want to make sure that your left hand at your organization is talking to your right hand. So organizations that submit more than one application will not be considered for this opportunity. And you'll see at the organization profile level, this is an update for those that have filed a report or an application before, we are making sure that instead of asking all this information on every single application you submit, we are collecting it at one time. So for each organization at the organization profile level, you do need to have each of these categories filled out. So name of org, EIN, address, website, pretty standard information. And then we do ask for your organization's mission statement, which subregions you serve. So those are just a click box, and the vital conditions addressed. Each user will also need an individual profile or account. So each individual should have their own unique user profile. So we do not recommend that users share login information, and this just allows a clean record of different activities in the portal. Individuals or grant writers, so if you have a grant writer submitting on behalf of your organization, you can have one login for multiple organizations, and there's a great resource in the library on Foundant to walk you through that. The applicant for the grant will be our main point of contact for grant updates. So as we have the final status updated, things like that, we will be notifying whoever is listed as the applicant on the grant. We will also ask for each organization to have a primary contact identified. And so this is usually an executive for that organization, and we will include and copy that individual on communications to the applicant, and ultimately we'll be sending the grant agreement to sign if selected to that primary contact. So each individual needs to have their name, job title, address, email, phone number, and unique password for their individual profile. As I shared earlier, each organization is going to need to have one primary contact identified. So this is different. This could be the same as your applicant, or it could be someone different. This contact needs to be someone who is an executive and has signing rights for the organization. And so this is the person that we are going to be sending the grant agreement to sign if your organization is collected. Additionally, with individuals, multiple individuals can be assigned and invited to work on the application. So maybe maybe it's one person that is the applicant for the application, but you want to invite who would be participating to fill out their participant questions themselves. Instructions are listed here. It's a great resource on how to collaborate. You would use the collaboration feature. But one thing to note is that if individuals should not be working on the application at the same time. They need to be working asynchronously. And the reason for that is if you have two people in the application at the same time, it is going to save the changes of whoever saves last. So we've had organizations that have been doing really great work in the portal, saved it and overrode the other. So unfortunately, there's limited technology capabilities with that. It's not, it's a live document in the sense that it can be updated, but it cannot be updated at the same time. And as I shared, communication between staff is really important because prior versions of the application cannot be recovered. And so once you do a new save, it's going to save it. So before you get to the application, so you've created the profiles, you created the individual, the organization, now you're going to complete a quick eligibility quiz. And so this is only going to take a few minutes to complete. You can see they're mostly yes, no questions. There's not going to be a full text box. If your organization passes this eligibility quiz, then instructions will be provided directly in the portal for how to access the application. It will usually come with an access code. If your organization fails the eligibility quiz and you have questions on why, you can reach out. One thing to also note here too, let's say your organization is working to update your candid status and you anticipate that that candid status will be updated by the application deadline. I would recommend you put yes, that you will meet the candid eligibility requirements here. And then just note that in order to be fully eligible, we will scan for it. That candid status needs to be gold and platinum at the time of submission of the application. But that just helps you access the application a little bit quicker so you can work in parallel as Candid is approving those updates. So application sections, there's a full list of questions that are linked to the RFA, so you have access into that. But the key areas, you're going to want to start with the general instructions. So you're going to talk through some logistics of the application, some key Foundant resources, things like that. Make sure you read that section thoroughly. Remember, there is a line item on the evaluation matrix that goes over application completeness. The second Section is going to be about organization profile and general information. So this you should be able to go over pretty quickly. Going to confirm that your organization profile, individual profile is up to date, that your organization provides those program and services overview, reach and budget, just your standard information. In this section, it's mostly radio buttons or those checkbox responses and short text area. And then we get into the meat of the application. So the next two sections are also mandatory. It's going to be about your organization fundraising information. So these responses are going to focus at the organization level, what your organization's current fundraising infrastructure, processes, goals, and challenges are. So in the 2 drop-down select questions and 3 narrative questions. And you can see on here, any narrative question is going to have a 3,000 character limit. So about 500 words or so, and this is going to be inclusive of spaces. So just be mindful of that. You will get an error message if it goes over the character count and you try to submit. The next section, we're going to drill down into participant information. And so these questions can be filled out by the applicant or you can collaborate with the participant. So it can be in first person or third person narrative, totally up to your organization. This is going to go over participant contact and demographic information. Those are going to be multiple short response or single select questions. What's the participant's job title? Can they commit to the classes? Questions like that. And then there's going to be 2 narrative questions about their fundraising experience and goals. Again, that 3,000 character limit. After those sections, the next 2 sections are optional, but I really strongly encourage you, if you have the time, to please complete them. The additional information section, we realize that there's unique circumstances for every organization, and so we allow an optional space to share anything about your organization or leaders that maybe wasn't captured in the other questions that you think it's important for the evaluators and IEHP Foundation staff to know. So again, limit this additional information to things about the organization or leaders that tie directly to this fundraising training opportunity. But again, this is a catch-all for you to submit additional information. And then that second optional section is really for us to learn and iterate on our application to streamline it more in the future. So this process feedback question just asks, how long did it take you to complete the application? How did you hear about this opportunity? And any feedback, so if there was glitches or a question didn't make sense, this is your opportunity to provide that feedback to us, and so we can be responsive to that feedback. And I will share that in the past for this particular application, our last cohort averaged about 2 hours to complete all sections of the application. Again, that was an average, but just of those that completed that optional question, but just again, as you're thinking through potential time. Important notes as you're completing the application, definitely recommend to apply early. You want to allow sufficient response time for any questions, updates to Candid, or technology concerns. Late applications will not be accepted. Any status updates about this will be provided from one of 2 email accounts. So you want to make sure these email accounts are marked safe across your organization servers. And so that's either going to come directly from the grants management portal. And so that final status update will definitely be from this email address, the administrator@grantinterface.com. And there also may be communications sent from our grants at IEHPFoundation.org inbox. So we may have a clarifying question or additional information. So again, just make sure that those email addresses are allowed to send messages through your server. And you can always check your application status by logging into the grants management portal. A successful submission is one that's considered submitted only if you receive a confirmation email. So we have had some folks that thought they submitted it. Double check that you received that confirmation email. That is your way to confirm that we have received it on our end. It fully went through the portal. Can't emphasize enough, please follow instructions, read all instructions carefully and thoroughly. And reach out if you have questions. And again, as I've emphasized throughout this whole presentation, we recognize that organizations and participants may have unique and nuanced experiences. Please reach out early, allow for at least 1 to 3 business days for a response. And the last one, I can't stress enough, please be honest. We here at the foundation value honesty and transparency. These opportunities tend to be responsive to the opportunities and challenges facing Inland Empire nonprofits. We don't expect any nonprofit to have it fully figured out when it comes to fundraising. That's part of why we're hosting this training, again, is to allow that opportunity to build capacity and improvement. So please be honest and transparent when you are applying and submitting your application. And so that sums up my slides for this opportunity. We have about 10 minutes left here on the portal, so I'm going to open up the chat to see if there's any additional questions for this opportunity. So if you haven't had a chance to put in questions on the Q&A, or if you have things that come up, feel free to throw them in here. And so we'll give a minute or two, but if not, you can always reach out to that grants@ihpfoundation.org inbox. If you need more time to chew on the presentation, realize we went over it fairly quickly. You can always reach out for more individual questions. So if you don't have any questions, again, we'll give it a minute here. And if not, look forward to seeing your applications and wishing you the best of luck. And I do just want to lift up, not a question, but my colleague Deanna did include some resources in the chat. We'll make sure to link these in the post email about impact of last year's programs, the class schedule, bios for our fundraising coaches, so on and so forth. All right, so on that note, I don't see any questions coming through, so I'm going to go ahead and end this information session. But again, thank you for taking the time to sit with us and learn about this opportunity a little bit more, and I wish you all a great day. Thank you.